Glen here from Final Draft Mapping, and I have a fantastic workflow here for you today where we're going to use the ArcGIS API for Python to copy a feature layer from a hosted feature service in ArcGIS Online and add it to another feature service. Let's check out the workflow. Here I'm in ArcGIS Online and I have two hosted feature services. And I want to take a feature layer from the MPWS NHA feature service and add it to the boundaries feature service. I'll click into the NHA feature service. You can see we have one layer here, the NHA polygon layer, and we're going to copy this layer and add it to our boundaries feature service. If I go back to my content and click into the boundaries feature service, we can see we have one feature layer in here, our county boundaries polygon layer, and we're going to add in our NHA boundaries. So let's go check out the Python script on how we can achieve this. Up top, we are importing the GIS class, which allows us to access our ArcGIS Online, and we're also importing the feature layer collection class. The feature layer collection class represents a feature service. We first access ArcGIS Online. We have three user inputs. The first is the layer name, the name of the layer from the feature service that we want to copy. So we saw that we had one layer called NHA, and this is the layer that we want to copy from our NPWS NHA feature service. We also need the item ID from the feature service that contains the layer that we want to copy, and the item ID for the feature service that we want to copy the feature layer to. Our first port of call is to get the feature layer definition for the layer that we want to copy. We use the content manager get method and supply in our item ID. The content manager get method returns an item object that will assign to a variable called from item. An item object that represents a feature service has a property called layers that returns each layer in the feature service as a feature layer object. And we're only interested in the feature layer that matches our layer name. We'll assign that feature layer object returned to a variable called FL for feature layer. We now want to get the feature layer properties but as a Python dictionary. The feature layer object has a property called properties that returns the JSON definition for that feature layer. We're going to cast that to a dictionary and assign it to a variable called feature layer definition. Now there are some properties that we want to delete from the definition: current version, ID, service item ID, and editing info. When we apply this definition to feature service that we want to copy the feature layer to, ArcGIS Online will automatically repopulate these for us. We also want to remove any relationships because these seems to cause issue and errors when we are copying. You can always re-add relationships once the copy is complete. So we now have a dictionary that represents our feature layer definition that we want to copy over to another feature service. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to add that definition to the feature service. We need to get our feature service item as an item object. So we use the content manager get method and supply in the item ID for the feature service that we want to copy to. The get method does return an item object, which will assign to a variable called toItem. We're then going to use our feature layer collection class, and we're going to create a feature layer collection object using the from item method and supplying in our item object above. We'll assign that to a variable called FLC that represents a feature layer collection. We now want to update our feature layer collection object by adding to the JSON definition. So here we call our feature layer collection object and we access the feature layer collection manager, which has a method for add to definition, and we want to add to the layers. The layers definition is a list, so we're going to use a list object and we're going to put our feature layer definition dictionary inside that list. This will add the feature layer definition to our feature service. Now I'm going to comment out the rest of this script first. And I'm going to run up until this point. So let's run this script. Our script is complete. Let's first head over to ArcGIS Online. I'm going to refresh our boundaries feature service here. We can see that only county boundaries still remains in this feature service. Yet we have added a definition for another feature layer to the feature service. From here, I'm going to pop on over to ArcGIS Pro. I'm going to go into my portal and into my blogs folder. And here I have the boundaries feature service. I'm going to double click in and we can see there are two layers there. We have the county boundaries and the NHA. So why is this not appearing in our feature service? I can right click and I can add to current map and it adds just fine. If I check out the attribute table, we can see that the schema is there, but we haven't brought across any of the data. From here, I'm going to go to ArcGIS Online Assistant. I'm going to log into my ArcGIS Online. I want to view an items JSON. I'll click on my blogs and click on the boundaries feature service. If I scroll down a bit, we have this data element here. If we check our layers, we can see that there is only one layer in there. So we need to update this data definition to add in the definition for our NHA layers. We can take a look at the makeup here. There's an ID, a blend mode, a layer definition, a pop-up definition, and we are going to copy this format here and apply it for our NHA. So let's head back over to our script. I will uncomment what we commented out. And I will uncomment the add definition to feature service part. And now we are going to update that item data. For both our from item object and to item object, we're going to call the get data method. That will retrieve that data element that we saw in AGO Assistant. We're then getting two feature layer objects, one for the original NHA layer and the other for the NH layer that we moved to our boundaries feature service. So we have our from feature layer object from the original and our to feature layer object that we just created. So we saw that a feature service has that data element and it has a layers property. We are going to grab the layer definition from the original and create a dictionary. So for each layer in our layers property from our original feature service, we want to grab the definition for our specific layer. And we'll assign that definition to a variable called update dict. The only portion of that definition that we need to update is the ID. So we're going to grab the ID from the newly created feature layer and assign it to that definition. We now want to update the layers property to include the added layer. We'll create a variable called current layers and we'll set this to the layers property from the feature service that we are adding to. We are going to add our new layer dictionary. So here we're using current layers and adding our updated dict that represents the new layer. Now I have tried to use append here, knowing that current layers is a list and it does not work, it returns none. This is the only way here to update that layers property list. Now that we have our new layers list, we're going to update the layers property to be our new layers list. Last thing to do is to update that data element that we saw in AGO Assistant. And we do that by creating a dictionary with a key of text and a value of the updated item data. We then use the item object update method and supply that new update dictionary as the item properties parameter. Now that we have our definitions in place, all we need to do is append the data. We have our to feature layer object, which has an append method. We're appending from our feature service, the original feature service that held the NHA. The upload format is feature service, and our source table name is our layer name NHA. This will append the data from the original to the copied feature layer. So let's run our script. I've got an error there, name to item is not defined because I have cancelled that out. So let's reinstate that and run again. And while I'm at it, I'll just uncomment out these here. So this script is good to go again in the future. Our script is complete. Let's first head over to ArcGIS Online Assistant. I'm going to refresh this page. I want to view an items JSON, and I'll click into the boundaries feature service. I'll scroll down and we can see we now have 2 entries in our layers dictionary. We have an ID of 0 here that will represent the newly added layer. ArcGIS Online will fill in any available ID. We can see that the original layer for our county boundaries was 1, 0 was available. If we added in another, it would be 2. From here, we'll go over to ArcGIS Online. You can see here our county boundaries layer. We're going to refresh. And we now have our NHA layer in our boundaries feature service. I'll click into NHA and go to data, and all our data has been brought across. If I go back over to ArcGIS Pro, refresh the attribute table, I'll refresh the map, we can see our data is now showing. A little bit of an advanced workflow there, but you can really see the power of using the ArcGIS API for Python for content management in ArcGIS Online. You can go over to our blog post, which there is a link below, to find the code that was used in this video. We also have courses for the ArcGIS API for Python for Web Map Essentials and for content management. The links are also below. Please leave a comment below if you have used this script successfully or unsuccessfully, and hopefully we can troubleshoot that code for you. The workflow here is excellent if you have mature feature services that you've been performing edits on and you don't want to take that data down to ArcGIS Pro and then republish. Thanks for watching this video, and please be sure to check out some more of our videos, and we've plenty of other blog posts over on our website.